Samuel Bell moved through his world with the quiet confidence of a man who had long ago learned to navigate by trust. Trust in his other senses, trust in his faithful companion, and trust in the familiar rhythms of his neighborhood. At 78, the former sergeant carried himself with military bearing, despite the white cane that swept methodically before him, and the black Labrador that walked steadily at his side. Guide, named with typical military brevity, was more than a service dog. For nearly a decade, the aging Labrador had been Sam's eyes, his early warning system, his constant companion through the darkness that had claimed his sight during a forgotten jungle conflict decades earlier. What the Army doctors couldn't save, Guide had helped replace. Their Thursday routine never varied. Morning walk to the corner market, afternoon volunteer shift at the public library where Sam read stories to children who never seemed to tire of his gravelly voice bringing fairy tales to life. Today's destination was the library, and they approached the notorious intersection of Elm and 3rd, a crossing that challenged even sighted pedestrians with its aggressive traffic patterns and frustratingly brief walk signals. Sam positioned himself at the familiar corner, Guide sitting patiently beside him. The cacophony of urban life surrounded them, car engines, distant sirens, the hum of conversation from the coffee shop across the street. When the electronic chirping of the IOR pedestrian signal began its reassuring countdown, Sam straightened. Forward, Guide. They stepped into the crosswalk together, Sam's cane tapping its steady rhythm while Guide's practiced navigation kept them centered in the crossing lane. Halfway across, the signal began its urgent flashing. Don't walk. Don't walk. But they were committed now, moving as quickly as Sam's careful gait would allow. Officers Miller and Davis, barely 18 months out of the police academy, sat in their patrol car nursing lukewarm coffee and the particular boredom that comes with routine duty. Miller, 24 and eager to prove himself, spotted the elderly man in the crosswalk. "Look at this guy," he said, setting down his cup. "Traffic's about to change and he's moving like he's God all day." Davis, equally young and just as quick to judgment, squinted through the windshield. Probably drunk or high. These old-timers, you never know. Neither officer registered the white cane's distinctive sweep, the service dog's careful positioning, or the fact that Sam and Guide had entered the crosswalk legally when the signal permitted. They saw only an impediment, a problem to be solved with authority. Miller activated the brief whoop of his siren, then grabbed the PA microphone. "Hey, you in the crosswalk. Move it along. Light's changing." The sudden electronic voice, amplified and directionally confusing, shattered Sam's carefully constructed audio map of his surroundings. He faltered, unsure which direction the command was coming from. Guide, startled by the aggressive sound, stopped and looked around nervously. "I said move it." Miller's voice boomed again through the speaker. "Are you deaf and blind?" Sam, his heart now racing with confusion and rising panic, tried to urge Guide forward, but the dog was hesitant, sensing danger in ways his human couldn't perceive. Cars began honking as the traffic light cycled through its sequence. "He's not complying," Davis said, reaching for his radio. "Looks like resistance." Miller, his training superficial and his judgment compromised by adrenaline, made a decision that would haunt him. He burst from the patrol car, taser in hand. "Sir, stop resisting. Get back on the sidewalk." Sam, disoriented and frightened, called out in a voice thin with fear, "I'm trying. I'm blind." But Miller was already committed to his course of action. "Last warning, get out of the road." Before Sam could respond, before any bystander could intervene, Miller fired. The taser barb struck the elderly veteran in the back. 50,000 volts coursed through his frail frame, and he collapsed onto the asphalt, his white cane clattering away beneath a parked car. Guide, terrified but loyal, stayed beside his fallen master, barking frantically and nudging Sam's face with his nose. The scene that followed was chaos. Davis rushed forward, not to help Sam but to handcuff what he still believed was a resisting suspect. Bystanders gasped and began filming. A woman's voice cut through the confusion. "He's blind, you idiots. He has a service dog. What are you doing?" Within minutes, Sergeant Kelly arrived, summoned by the earlier radio traffic about an obstructing pedestrian. An experienced supervisor, she took one look at the scene, elderly man on the ground, taser wires, distressed service, dog horrified crowd, and her expression hardened. "Remove those handcuffs immediately," she ordered, dropping to her knees beside Sam to begin first aid while calling for an ambulance. "What in God's name happened here, Miller?" Miller, his confidence evaporating under his supervisor's icy stare, stammered about non-compliance and public safety. Davis had gone pale, the reality of their actions beginning to penetrate his earlier certainty. Among the gathering crowd, a retired Army colonel named Harrison sat in the nearby cafe, his coffee growing cold as he watched the scene unfold through the window. He knew exactly what he was seeing, and more importantly, he knew exactly who to call. The number he dialed bypassed normal channels, connecting directly to the Regional Joint Military Command. "This is Colonel Harrison, retired. I need to report an incident involving a disabled veteran. Serious incident, yes, I'll hold. 7 minutes. That's how long it took from the moment Sam Bell collapsed on the crosswalk to the moment the familiar sounds of Elm and 3rd were fundamentally altered. The first sound was a deep rumble, not the high whine of police sirens or ambulances, but something heavier, more purposeful. Then the lead vehicle appeared. An olive-drab Humvee with military markings, its lights flashing with precision rather than civilian urgency. It didn't slow for the police perimeter. It drove straight through, forcing surprised officers to scatter. The Humvee positioned itself to block one entire approach to the intersection. A second vehicle did the same on the opposite side. Then came a larger LMTV, light-medium tactical vehicle, sealing off the third approach. Within 60 seconds, the busy urban intersection was under an unofficial military lockdown. Soldiers in combat fatigues emerged from the vehicles, taking up calm but unmistakably authoritative positions. They didn't interfere with the paramedics now attending to Sam, but their presence sent a clear message. This situation was no longer solely in civilian hands. Sergeant Kelly stared in disbelief as her radio crackled with confused calls from dispatch about unauthorized military vehicles blocking a major artery. Officers Miller and Davis looked like they'd seen ghosts. From the lead Humvee stepped a figure that commanded immediate attention. Tall, ramrod straight, wearing the crisp duty uniform of a United States Army 4-star general. His chest displayed an impressive array of ribbons earned over decades of service. This was General Michael Vance, commander of the Regional Army Forces, a man known for decisive leadership and unwavering loyalty to his soldiers, past and present. General Vance had been at the nearby base for a routine staff meeting when the urgent call came through. The name Samuel Bell was familiar. It appeared regularly in veterans' honor reports and disability advocacy documentation. The general had made the decision to respond personally. He walked purposefully toward the center of the intersection, his aides struggling to keep pace. He ignored the police officers entirely, his attention focused on the stretcher where Sam was being carefully prepared for transport, guide whining softly beside him. "Sergeant," he said to Kelly, his voice calm but carrying the unmistakable weight of command, "I am General Vance. What is the status of Sergeant Samuel Bell?" Sergeant Kelly, despite her experience, was visibly taken aback by the sudden military presence. "General, sir, Mr. Bell is stable and conscious. He appears to have been tased by one of my officers during a pedestrian stop. Paramedics are transporting him to City General for evaluation." The general's eyes, like chips of winter ice, flickered toward officers Miller and Davis. "Tased," he repeated, the word flat and heavy with unspoken condemnation. "For what offense, Sergeant? Did your officers deem it necessary to use a taser on an unarmed 78-year-old blind man attempting to cross the street with his service dog?" Kelly, to her credit, didn't attempt to deflect. "Sir, the initial report was pedestrian obstructing traffic, resisting instruction. However, based on witness statements and the obvious presence of Mr. Bell's white cane and service animal, it appears a catastrophic error in judgment occurred." "An error in judgment," General Vance echoed softly. He turned his attention to Miller and Davis, both standing rigid with terror. "Officers, did either of you identify yourselves clearly before engaging Mr. Bell? Did you ascertain his disability?" Did you offer assistance as per both police protocol and basic human decency when you observed an elderly blind individual apparently disoriented in a busy intersection? Miller stammered. Sir, he wasn't responding to commands. He seemed agitated. Agitated, the general cut him off. Perhaps because he was blind, confused by your PA system, and in danger of being struck by traffic. Moments before 1, how you shot him with 50,000 volts. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. Sergeant Samuel Bell lost his sight serving this country in a place most people couldn't locate on a map. He has navigated this city independently, for decades with his service dog. What he encountered today was not a public disturbance, it was a failure of observation, a failure of training, a failure of empathy, and a gross abuse of authority. The general turned back to Sergeant Kelly. Sergeant, I expect a full and transparent investigation by your Internal Affairs Division. I will also be requesting a parallel investigation by the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. My office will monitor both closely. He gestured to an aide, who stepped forward with a satellite phone. I am formally requesting that the mayor and police chief meet me at City General Hospital within the hour to discuss your department's training protocols regarding interactions with disabled individuals, particularly disabled veterans, and appropriate use of force. Kelly nodded grimly. Understood, General. We'll cooperate fully. General Vance walked to the ambulance just as paramedics prepared to close the doors. He leaned inside, his voice softening considerably as he addressed the injured veteran. Sam, Sergeant Bell, this is General Mike Vance. Can you hear me? Sam, pale and clearly in pain, managed a weak nod. Don't worry about anything, Sam. You're in good hands now. We'll take care of everything. You focus on getting checked out. Guide will be looked after right beside you. He gently patted the dog's head, then added, his voice hardening just enough for nearby officers to hear. And those responsible will be held accountable. The ambulance pulled away, its siren now sounding mournful in the heavy air. General Vance watched it go, then turned to face the still blocked intersection, the stunned police officers and the silent crowd. His message, delivered without shouting, had been unmistakably clear. An injustice against one veteran was an injustice that the full weight of military concern might address, especially when that veteran was one of their own. The fallout was swift and comprehensive. The mayor and police chief did indeed meet General Vance at the hospital, emerging hours later visibly shaken and promising immediate, sweeping reforms. Officers Miller and Davis were suspended without pay, pending multiple investigations. Phone footage of the incident flooded social media, sparking widespread outrage. The police department, facing intense public pressure and the unblinking scrutiny of General Vance's office, fast-tracked a comprehensive new training program focusing on de-escalation techniques and interactions with disabled individuals, with specific modules on identifying and assisting veterans. Sam Bell recovered from the physical effects of the tasing, though the emotional trauma lingered. General Vance personally ensured he received the best possible follow-up care. Guide was examined by veterinarians and given the comfort he needed after his traumatic experience. The veteran community rallied around Sam, providing support and solidarity. The story became a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by disabled veterans and the critical need for better training and accountability within law enforcement. The image of military Humvees blockading a city street to address an injustice against a blind veteran became an iconic symbol, a testament to the enduring bonds among those who served and the principle that no one gets left behind. In a quiet moment later, General Vance visited Sam at home. "No one gets left behind, Sam," he said simply. "Not on my watch, not ever. You spent your life navigating darkness for us. The least we can do is make sure your path is safe now." And for a while, at least in that city, the path for vulnerable citizens became a little clearer, a little safer, all because one blind veteran's mistreatment brought the quiet thunder of military concern to bear at the intersection of Elm and 3rd. Because when you harm someone who has already sacrificed, so much you may find yourself facing an army of support you never anticipated.